And you're watching The World with me, Charles Anyagolu. Let's return to our top story. Hours after Ukraine said its agents carried out an operation to sabotage the strategic bridge linking Russia to occupied Crimea, traffic is reported to have resumed across Kerch bridge. It's a key part of a supply route for invading Russian troops inside Ukraine. President Trump says he's spoken with Vladimir Putin, and Mr. Putin has said that he will most definitely retaliate for that attack. Well, for more on this, let's speak now to the international affairs analyst, Dr. Marek, who joins me on the line from London. Good to see you, Dr. Laskiewicz. Let's start with Donald Trump saying in the last hour or so that he's spoken to Vladimir Putin. They spoke for about an hour and a half, and he said that Mr. Putin seems determined to retaliate and that there's no question of talking about ceasefires at this stage. I expect that's going to make a lot of people in Kyiv nervous.
Well, the real question is, how far will he retaliate? You see, the action in Russia taking out some of his bombers and the Kerch Peninsula Bridge, these are very important strikes by Ukraine. And Russia has to retaliate for two reasons. First of all, it's a question of prestige. And secondly, if Putin wants to win the war, it's clear he has to make an extra effort. The problem for us, or the rest of the world, is what is this extra effort? Hopefully it will be conventional arms, but quite what he has in mind is unclear. Hopefully it will not escalate the war. Again, it is unclear. There is also some further aspects which are quite interesting. Both the Kerch Bridge attack and the Russian attack on the Russian bombers shows that Russia clearly has an intelligence problem with Ukraine, in the sense it probably has no spies or no knowledge of what Ukraine's doing, which is a tribute to Ukraine in the sense that it's succeeded in this sort of espionage warfare quite well. And also it implies that Ukraine, if it really had planned these attacks before, was already mistrusting Biden's America, let alone Trump's America, which is an interesting little point, as many people have said that Trump is totally different to Biden. But in terms of Ukraine not trusting them and not giving them information, clearly there's no difference.
And I mean, in terms of your assessment of this, the significance of this sort of Crimea operation, and of course beyond this, the other ones that occurred recently, I mean, is Ukraine now starting to embark on more asymmetric actions rather than, or in addition to, sort of conventional fighting in this war?
Well, that's the problem. If they insist upon fighting to this level, then if Russia retaliates, then how is it going to retaliate? The problem is Russia has still huge arms. It has not used them against Ukraine because, according to the analysis in my books many years ago, it sees Ukraine as a part of Russia, Ukrainians as a type of Russia, speaking a dialect, if you will, much as if there are regions of other countries in the world which have dialects, and misled, of course, according to his analysis anyway, by neo-Nazis. But the point is that what is happening now is Ukraine goes this far. Will he be tempted to use something stronger? We do hope not. But in my books, I have said that World War III is a nexus, which is very hard to avoid. And it would appear the Ukraine is quite determined to get some sort of reaction from Russia. The strangest aspect of all this is that if they're really meeting for talks, it was a very strange time to make this action because the implication is quite clear. And please note in Donald Trump's conversation with Putin, or rather what he said, look what's missing. Trump was pressurizing Putin to come to terms, to do something, and suddenly nothing. And the reason why is because having launched these attacks just literally before the talks, it's quite clear it can no longer be correct to blame the Russians alone for all the failures to achieve any sort of peace treaty or, for that matter, ceasefire.
And I mean, is this also a show of power of what Ukraine can do to actually show the US and President Trump that they can make a difference if they were to be given support, and also to strengthen Ukraine's negotiating hand?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, of course, it is, of course, very good for Ukraine in the sense it shows they're capable of putting off some audacious moves, but or certainly the invasion previously is in the same league. The problem here is that Russia has strength in depth, and in the end may well choose to retaliate. See, the whole problem with this war isn't that it's a war. War's been going on for centuries, or if not millennia to be exact. The problem is, will this war go any further? And it was already once before, and already now, possibly going towards some sort of stalemate, which would have halted it. And suddenly it's, so to speak, livened up again. Let's hope it doesn't go too far in the direction of escalation. Whether it's strengthening Ukraine's hand, by no means obvious that it has, because the Russians simply gave precisely the peace terms that I predicted before, namely the 4 provinces and Crimea, and Ukraine is not to join the West in any shape or form, and as if the attacks had never occurred. From that point of view, strengthening its hand, it doesn't appear to have worked.
Well, obviously, beyond Crimea, there have been other Ukrainian attacks in the last few days. Do we have any sense of how badly Russia's strategic aviation fleet was damaged in the last couple of days, and how many bombers are still flying after those drone attacks by Ukraine? I mean, some analysts are calling it Russia's Pearl Harbor, which has left Vladimir Putin's planes in tatters.
Well, it hasn't left them in tatters. He does have other planes. Secondly, they were also for nukes, and he has not used nukes against Ukraine up to now, has had no intention, according to my analysis, of using nukes or anything like it, because I stress he saw Ukraine as part of Russia. But there comes a point, presumably, where he has to retaliate, if only for reasons of prestige. Now comes the other point. Is his planes in tatters? No. But the analogy with Pearl Harbor is very disturbing. Unlike those critics who see Russia getting a bloody nose and running away, that's not what happened at Pearl Harbor. At Pearl Harbor, the Americans came in full force. Indeed, arguably, the decision to attack Pearl Harbor was flawed. How it was carried out tactically is another matter. Here, they have certainly hit a few planes and certainly caused some damage, but it hasn't dramatically weakened Russia. So from that point of view, let us hope it's not a Pearl Harbor analogy, which brings Russia out fighting even harder.
Very interesting indeed. Dr. Laskiewicz, as always, we are deeply appreciative of your analysis. Dr. Marek Laskiewicz is the international affairs analyst who was talking to me on the line there from London.